Just basically whatever you want to talk about, more
Right.
organic.
My name is Warren Senders. I have lived in Medford for over 10 years. We moved into Medford from Arlington in 2001. And I would say that while I've always been aware of environmental issues and been cognizant of the problems involved in pollution, the ozone layer, and global warming, and all of this, it really got brought home for me when my daughter was born in 2005. Because to have a child is to make an investment, to direct your attention to the future. And so that, I think, greatly focused my thinking. I'm a blogger. I write regularly but infrequently on the Daily Kos website, and I have my own website. And in the probably from around 2007 onwards, there was a guy who was blogging on Daily Kos who went by the name Johnny Rook. His real name was Stephen Kimball. And he posted these blog posts. They were really kind of scary. There was a lot of stuff that had to do with the accelerating pace of global warming and what it was likely to do to the world. And I began reading his writing, and it really galvanized me, first into just worry. And anybody who pays attention to the global warming issue knows about worry. That's really that's the ground state that we have now, is that we're worried. And it was somewhere around late 2008, early 2009 that I was having an online conversation with Stephen Kimball, Johnny Rook, and I said, the first thing that I said was, how do you keep going? How do you deal with the worry? What is it that allows you to go on in the face of every couple of days he'd post something and it would just be completely gut-clenchingly terrifying. And I was raised in a family of scientists, and while I'm not a scientist, I'm by profession a musician and a music teacher, I have enough of a scientific understanding so that I can tell obvious nonsense from obvious truth. And what he was posting was very carefully sourced and meticulously detailed, and to the extent that I was able to confirm things independently, his science was accurate. So that gave me a high measure of confidence in what he was saying. So I asked, how do you keep from going crazy with the despair? And he said, you'll have to wait a couple of days for my answer. And a couple of days later, he posted another piece that went right to the top of the recommended list on Daily Kos, and a lot of people were reading it. And it was titled, My Doctor Doesn't Think I'm Going to Die Today. And it wasn't so much about climate as it was a personal story. He was dying. He was in a hospital in the Pacific Northwest with an extremely rare and incurable form of cancer, and he had a very short time left on the planet. And so he was talking about this and saying, well, it's really too late for me, but I have a wife, I have a son, I have hopes for the world. And he said, I've always been an outdoorsman, I love the world, I love the wilderness, and it's too late for me. I know I'm going to die, but it's not too late for you. And, well, after reading that, it didn't stop me from worrying, but it sort of put a different complexion on worrying. Because here's this guy, he's in a hospital bed with tubes running in and out of his body, and what he's doing with his time is ecological blogging. Because he can't get out of his hospital bed. And he was devoting all of his time. Sometimes he would say, sorry, I can't comment anymore, I'm too tired. And then you realize what that actually means. So anyway, that kind of that, that was extraordinary. And I asked him in the course of a conversation, what should I do? I'm not a scientist. I'm just an ordinary guy who's now really worried. I have a kid. What should I do? And he said very simply, go to 350.org. And that was in early 2009. And I went to 350.org and started poking around. He gave me a web link. I went over to 350.org and I said, it's Bill McKibben. Right, I know that guy, and you know, I've got all these Bill McKibben books here. I'm a big fan of Bill's writing, and so I thought, okay, well, that was a good piece of advice. And I've been aware of Bill McKibben's work for 20 years, and as an educator, his writing on the way that our society processes information and how we learn about the natural world is extremely important. Very, very relevant and very timely. So I immediately had the sense that I was on board with an organization that I could trust, which is important. Now, this was in early 2009, and 350.org was just beginning to lay the foundation for the International Day of Climate Action on October 24th, 2009. So it must have been somewhere around March or April. And I immediately said, yep, sure, I'm going to do something. And then I was thinking there, going, now what the hell am I going to do? Because all I could think of was the stuff that other people were going to do. Well, we're going to plant trees. You know, and I thought, yeah, I could do that. But I kept trying stuff on and discarding it because it didn't really seem to fit who I was and where my skill set lay. And so I was getting, again, kind of gloomy and depressed because there was, I'd signed up to produce an action on October 24th, 2009, and I couldn't think of something to do. And then the way that happens, I had this little, you know, a CFL light bulb went on over my head, and I remembered that in a previous lifetime, from the 1970s through the 1980s and part of the 1990s, I was very active as a concert producer. And I produced literally hundreds of concerts in different venues all over Boston and in different places in Massachusetts. And I thought, now there's an idea. So I got out my address book and I began making some calls, and I secured a venue and I put on a concert. I set up a concert called Playing for the Planet, World Music Against Climate Change. And that was October 24th. That was the International Day of Climate Action. And you know, we had people on the slopes of Mount Everest and people underwater in the Maldives and so on and so forth. And then in my little corner of Cambridge, in the First Congregational Church, I put on a concert with 6 different acts. There were Indian vocal music, which is what I do, Hindustani vocal music. I lived in India for many years and learned that idiom. African drumming, Japanese classical music, Eastern European women's music, Middle Eastern violin, Indian classical dance. It was a world music festival. And all of these artists, when I called them, said, yes, absolutely, we really want to do something. And people said, you know, we worry so much about this. We see the news. We don't know what to do. And so the musicians were really, really grateful to me for setting this up. And we raised around $1,800 for 350.org then. So that was good. I had a week that was free of liberal guilt, you know. And so I decided to do more concerts. And so since then, I've put on 5 more concerts. And so probably over the past few years, I've put on 2 concerts a year featuring different artists from all over the world, representing musical traditions from all over the world, but living here in the Boston area. And probably raised between $7,000 and $8,000 for 350, which is not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's a whole lot more than I would have been able to give him by myself. And it put the awareness of climate change more on the map in my circles and in the circles of the people who were participating in the event. So I like to feel that I was doing something. And I'll just digress here for a second. After I did the first concert in 2009, I had an idea that I needed to do something that was more than just once every 6 months put on a concert. I needed to do something every day. And so I made a New Year's resolution in 2010, January 1st, 2010. And this is unlike every other New Year's resolution I've ever made in my life, and probably what most of the New Year's resolutions that everybody I know has ever made in their lives, in that I've kept it. I resolved that I would write a letter to the editor every day on climate change. And I've been doing that now since January 1st, 2010. So I'm coming up on 1,000 letters. And every day, you know, I plug climate change news into my browser and track something down that's going to appear in a print medium somewhere and send a letter to the editor. And of course they don't all get published, but enough of them get published so that I have a sense that I'm participating in the conversation.